Yeah. Oh. Hi. We are Alex, César, and Fernando. Today we will talk about learning to read in another language. We would like to talk more about first about the how we learn to read in our first language, that is Spanish. Alex.
Yes, so I don't know about you guys, but when I was starting to read in my first language, which is Spanish on kindergarten, I remember that it was challenging for us to make a relationship between the symbols that we were reading and the sound. And we have to learn some new sounds for us. For example, I remember that the teacher was very specific about the sound of ra, which is something very specific for Spanish, something that we don't have in English. Um, well, also, when a child is learning to read on his first language, it's easier because he's more familiar with the language since the parents speak to them on that language. They already have an idea of what they are going through.
Okay, adding to that, what Alex said, I remember very well in the reading that mentioned something that when it's like an early reading, when children listen to what the parents read to them, it's like to acquire a little bit more of the vocabulary, and it's like as I said, an early reading, and the children get interest about the material because not all the time it's like, oh, okay, I like to read or stuff like that. It's not that natural. Some children have that ability or that interest, but it's not all the time. And it's interesting to see that when parents read to the children, they get an interest and get more attention. They ask about it, and that helps for the future when they get in the primary on the kindergarten.
Yeah, so in addition, by the time that they get start to read, they have already acquired a vocabulary of around 1,000 to 2,000, 3,000 words. So it becomes really easy for them, much easier than an L2 learner to read and understand what they are reading, right? The comprehension, and yeah.
Now, yes, about talking about the L2, we will think about in our level, like in our age. Could be difficult because let's think about that. We are teenagers, and our professor gave us a book to read, and will be in English, and we're talking Spanish. And it will be very hard because we need to learn new terms, new words, new vocabulary. That could be hard for us. And if we don't like to read, that we don't get our attention. We won't be catch about it.
So that is why it's very important to choose lectures that are interesting for the students according to their age and their level. So let's say that, for example, if you have a group of children, well, maybe you can choose a lecture that can be interesting for them, like something that talks about sports or video games. But then if you have a group of teenagers, well, maybe you can talk about something more complex, maybe about culture, about history, or even for adults. But it's very important to find a lecture that it's engaging for them because, well, here in Mexico, we don't really have the culture of reading. We are more used to technology, and it's not very common to find students that actually like to read. So that is why it's pivotal to find a topic that really catches the students' attention, because that way, if they really want to learn about that topic, then they will see a second language as a tool to reach that.
Yeah, and it was very interesting. And also in the lecture, in the reading, there is a part about techniques of how to teach how to read. There are three parts. It's like the guided reading, the shared reading, and the independent reading. We will start with the shared reading with Cesar.
Alright, so shared reading basically means that there is a teacher in front or in the middle of the students, right? Either the students can be surrounding the teacher or the teacher can be in front of the class. Now, this is very common in primary schools because it allows students to start focusing on things that they should, like vocabulary and what they think is gonna happen next in the book, right? And since it's in a group, as a group, they all share ideas. No one feels bad since they're predictions. No one feels bad about doing like getting the correct answer, right? Now, personally, growing up, I did shared reading from elementary all the way to high school, right? However, it did change a little bit once I started getting into middle school. Once I started getting into middle school, it was different because it was as a group. We all had the same book, and as well as the teacher, and we all read together, right? We all read together the same chapter or chapters, or text, right? And after that we all shared ideas, what we thought about the book, what we understood about the chapter, and future predictions, right? And so it's not. I don't think it's just for like elementary or people who are just learning to learn the language. It's something that is very useful throughout all the ages. It doesn't really matter if you are just starting out or if you are in high school. And the next one would be
The guided shared reading.
Guided. Before we get into the next point, adding to what Cesar just said, I also remember that when I was starting to read in my first language in literature class, the teacher would read a book to the group when we were children, some tales, something that was really according to our age. And I remember that for me it was a really fun activity. I didn't see it as like something boring or an activity that I had to get through, but it was actually a really fun activity that I enjoy, and I think that is what we have to reach. And now going to the next point, which is guided reading. Basically, this one refers to when the student is sharing the lecture, whether with a teacher or with a peer. And well, in the case that the student is sharing the lecture with the teacher, in this style, it's very important that the student just reads the lecture straight. It doesn't matter if he's making mistakes while he's reading, but we don't have to correct him while he's reading until the end. That is very important. This one is very personal because it's like one-to-one between the student and teacher or the student and another classmate. It can be very relaxed. So if we encounter to a type of student that maybe is kind of shy or doesn't like to read out loud in front of the group, this technique can be really good for them.
Okay. Well, about the guided reading, I remember very well when I was in primary school. It was kind of difficult for me because in the past I didn't like to read. So I remember in the primary school, our professor gave us the homework to improve our spelling and our reading comprehension. Read a book to our parents, and for me it was difficult because not reading it was like more to have the two activities to read to someone else, because reading for myself is very easy in that moment. To my parents, I will be a little bit nervous, But when I was with my friends, it was very relaxed, and that was a very good activity to do. And the last part is the independent reading. This could be, I think, in my personal opinion, one of the most difficult because, as it says, independent, the student takes a book, or the book could be chosen by the professor and is given to the students to read and improve their comprehension about the reading and the prediction about it. There is another name for this in the book. There is Dear. Drop everything and read. As I said, it's complicated because not all the students, as myself, is easy to read to catch their attention. And as my partner said, it is important to find a material that could be interesting depending on the age and the proficiency level, because we cannot give a student Hamlet to understand. They have a lot of words in English, old English, that could be complicated for students that are beginning in the English reading. But as professors, we need to have techniques for this. And to have a well balanced strategy, as the book said, we have four instances. The first one is meaning focused input. As it says, it's more focused in readings, intensive readings. And after that, we can have more material according to the level, to the age, and also more relaxed depending on what is the need of the students. It's like to have an introduction with the vocabulary, with the comprehension, and also to develop abilities like skimming and prediction to make step by step a better reader. After that, we have the
Meaning focused output. Now, meaning focused output is applying what you have learned onto a paper, right? Now this can be like assignments such as like essays, or something more personal, like like a diary, right? So this is like just applying what you know from either grammar to vocabulary to what you have read, right? Everything you have read, and applying it on to a paper, right? Writing it. Now, the next one is fluency development. Fluency development is something that teachers lack because they try to learn more, teach students more and more and more, right? And that's a good thing. However, I feel like students need to become get a good grasp of what they have learned, and once they do, move on from there. And that's what fluency development does. It gives the students the opportunity to read and practice what they have learned, so they can perfect it. And once they have perfected it, they move on to the next level. And the last one is
And the last one that we have is language focused learning. And this one is based mostly on vocabulary. So let's say that if you have a dense lecture, maybe there are going to be some words that the student doesn't know from before. And in this technique, the teacher plays a very important role because in these cases, we can try to provide the student with the answer of what this new word means or in which type of context we use it. Maybe if you are reading something kind of complex, maybe about economy, medicine, things like that, depending on the student's needs. Well, in these type of lectures, you can acquire new vocabulary, new language. So it's very focused on new types of words that the student maybe kind of struggle with. And just as I mentioned, in this one, it's very important that the student and teacher go hand in hand in order to learn this new vocabulary, when to use it, how to use it, and so on.
Yeah, and we talk about the techniques and how to teach. we need to be focused also too, and that what is better to read in our first language and our second language. In my opinion, it's difficult as a person that didn't like to read before. To read in my first language, it was easy, but it was not catchy for me. Later, in my second language, that is English, at the beginning was horrible because I needed to learn new terms, new words. I'm a person who distracts at very fast moments, so I need to be very focused in what I'm doing. And reading in a second language for me, and it's difficult because we need to teach again how to read. This kind of sounds weird, but it's necessary to learn teach how to read again in other language. And if we don't have that culture that Alex mentioned before, it could be difficult. This is my opinion and how I live it. So I don't know what you think about it.
Yes, it's very difficult to start reading in a different language because sometimes there are some expressions that doesn't really have a translation into our first language, or some words that maybe are not used in our first language. For example, ours, it's Spanish. So yes, it is very important to find a lecture that is engaging for the students. I remember that the first times that I started reading in English when I was a teenager, it wasn't really because I wanted to learn English, but because I wanted to get access into some media. Like, for example, in my case, I like to read comic books, and because I was interested in that, I had to learn English to get into that. So maybe we can find some things that are engaging and fun for the students.
What about you, Cesar?
Well, personally, I think that we have touched on what the most important aspect is, which is creating an engaging and could be creative environment for the students so they can enjoy reading, because it's not something that you ask a student, hey, do you like reading? Most of the students are going to say no. They're going to say no, but it's important. It's important nowadays, and especially how we are moving in the future, because we are seeing these kids pick up a phone or go to YouTube, watch. They'd rather watch a YouTube video or something like that than pick up a book and read. And it is making these students, it's making it more difficult for them to understand lectures and their fluency and stuff like that.
Yes, and it's also important to create a safe environment in the classroom so that the students don't feel ashamed or embarrassed to read out loud. Because we know that sometimes some students can make fun of the pronunciation of their peers. And yes, it's important that we make students feel safe while reading out loud.
And encourage them, because reading is a very interesting thing to do. It's like a TV in your head when you're reading. But talking about the L2, I think it's not that proficient as L1, but it's necessary to improve it in how we teach and add new strategies based in our experience. I have a lot of ideas, but we have not enough time to talk about it, and we need to say thank you. And thanks to see our video. See you around.
Thank you. See you.